what's the biggest takeaway that you have on Duke, both in this game, and then I think the question I would ask you is, we've now seen these two late game situations against Kentucky and Kansas, where other than the Knippel 3, which almost went in there, that would have been insane. But they've had 4 possessions, basically, 4 true trips. It's been 4 turnovers. Is that a result of not having elite point guard play?
Number one, I'll say this is walking down with Jon Scheyer just a few minutes ago, really. You can tell how confident he is in this team, especially compared to last year, guys. Like, he is not worried at all. Obviously, he's pissed off that they didn't win the game tonight, and he felt like they should have and could have, and probably didn't get the best whistle tonight either if you're Duke. But ultimately, you're looking at it of what this team can be, and even Bill Self said that. Like, this Duke team is going to be nowhere near what we see them at the end of the year, and I think that's going to be Jon Scheyer's challenge, right? At the end of games, how do you figure it out with Cooper Flagg? Because one of the issues Cooper Flagg's having, and Rob kind of alluded to it earlier, mentioned it, was in AU ball, he could just drive to the basket and overpower guys and pretty much do what he wanted. Now, like, his handle's good. It's really good for somebody his size, but it's still, he's not a point guard. He's not a guy who could just put on the floor and change directions against really good high-level college, like elite defenders like KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris. So I think Scheyer is still – Cooper Flagg's going to be a lot further along, number one, and can you alleviate some pressure off him a little bit? And I'm not sure they have the guy to do that. Proctor and Foster really aren't that. Knippel in a two-man game might be your best bet down the road.
I disagree with that a little bit because I think that they have – and Mike, please tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think they have 4 guys – with their best lineup on the floor, they have 4 guys that can all initiate. And whether it's Cooper Flagg, Knippel, or Caleb Foster, any one of those guys have the ability to get put in a ball screen, get put in a DHO, to put the ball on the floor and score, to make a 3, to create for somebody else, right? And I think you can make the argument that the worst of the 4 is the guy that was your starting point guard the last 2 years, right? Like, I think they have enough where you don't necessarily need one guy. My biggest concern, so just to go to your point on like the end of game stuff, Fana, the first 3 turnovers are just a result of like Cooper's habit is going to his right and spinning back to his left because he should be a high school senior, and that's what worked for him in high school. That's what worked for him in AAU, and he hasn't gotten used to the fact that it's not going to work for him against 23-year-olds that are on the number 1 team in the country, right? Or guys that are old that play for Kentucky. I'm not worried about that. I think he'll get that figured out. Tonight's thing was he wasn't physical enough. He got knocked off his path. They couldn't get that ghost screen action. Knippel gets into the lane. He draws defenders, but Sion James is crashing in from the corner, so he's got no outlet there. And Cooper is just standing right behind Zeke Mayo, so there's no passing lane there. Like, I think they called the right play. You just got get used to each other, get used to the movement. So, like, I'm not worried about any of that stuff in the long run. In the immediate, yeah. By February, I think they'll figure all of that stuff out.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing with this Duke team, they mentioned on the broadcast, right? It's the biggest team in the country, right? It's the tallest team in the country, and everybody loves positional size. We talk about it like crazy, and like I'm a big believer that offensively you need to play like you have positional size, and defensively you need to play like you don't have it, right? There needs to be a certain level of desperation, a certain level of survival on the defensive end. And when Duke's really good, they have that. They did that against Arizona because the team with positional size that plays with desperation and that plays with that survival element to them, they're just hard to score on. And for Duke offensively, I stay on the positional size note because Knippel, like, right, you're 6'7", you got all this size. Cooper Flagg, you're 6'9", you got all this size. Take your time. Like, take your time. I thought this was the most sped up that Cooper Flagg had been all season. Obviously late game Kentucky got sped up there, spun into traffic. Oweh takes the ball away, but tonight, you get his turnover. I thought it was a great play by Zeke Mayo because Zeke Mayo is the one that kept getting involved in that switch up top where they're going to that 2-man game, and it's really what you would call like a push screen where Cooper gets on the inside, gets under, and just kind of pushes off into that short roll. And Zeke was smart. At the end, he said, I'm not letting you push off and get under me. I'm going to fight back over and get the low side. And then Cooper's going into the back down there. And it's like, dude, you got the size. I mean, Zeke Mayo, you're talking 6'3", right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have maybe 30 pounds on him. Just take your time. Like, you can back down, assess, look.
But
you're in that middle third, which is.
Don't you think, Mike, he was worried because early on in the game, I thought they did a really good job of kind of throwing different things at him. So he almost had to, they made sure he had to get the ball out of his hands. So I think maybe again, he was rushing things because he knew if he didn't, they were going to come at him with something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a maturity thing. Just as you start to get used to the speed of college basketball, understanding, man, I have the size, and the really good players, which Cooper Flagg is, they welcome the double teams. Like, great. Give me the double team. I'm strong enough to be able to create an advantage for us, right? And be able to take my time and throw out of that. I think, like and again, like, the game is so fast. And even for guys like Cooper Flagg, even for guys like Con Knipple. And that's another guy that I thought at the end, game's on the line, he drives, like, he predetermined his read. He spun into, he wanted to take that shot, and KJ Adams was there to contest. And at that point, that's when Sion James ran in almost to crash, because I think he thought Con was shooting it too. And then you just get this cluster in the paint, which leads to the turnover. And it's I don't think it's necessarily bad luck, because I do think there's an element of youth that is predetermining what you want to do and being a little bit sped up.
Yeah, and
All right,
I
let's
think
talk about
that